Good morning, everybody. And you know, we got to include Lottie Dottie. It's your boy Retro with you on this morning for another show, Retro Philosophy. Thank you for taking time out of your morning to check in with us and see what's going on. We have a guest with us on today. We're going to introduce him momentarily. But again, we've got to declare that this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. You got to make a conscious choice to give him praise, glory, and honor. And you know, you ain't got to be a church boy, you ain't got to be a church girl, you ain't got to be a Christian. You just got to realize that, you know, you didn't wake yourself up this morning. You got to realize that you didn't create this flesh that you live in. You know, there's a great being, and I happen to call him Jesus. Come on, somebody. And so we give him all praise, glory, and honor. Because it's due unto his name. All right. So again, we want to thank you for pressing play and being with us on today. I'm hoping that today's show will prove to be not only interesting but beneficial. I believe that this show is going to help us all in the sense of age groups. So in other words, because we have a young man with us today, he's gonna share some things with us. But you may already be, you know, well into your career, and you may say, well, it's too late for me. I can't do this. Well, first of all, it's never too late. But second of all, you might be able to encourage your son, your nephew, your neighbor, your grandson to follow suit with what we're getting ready to share with you guys here in just a moment. So we want you to go ahead and let somebody know that I'm on. Go ahead and hit that share button, and definitely hit the comment section. We want to know when you come on. I understand some people will just hit the speaker button, but press play, hashtag press play. Somebody put in the comment section, hashtag press play. But really, we want to know who you are. We want to know where you're watching from. So when you come in, just say, yo, it's Peter. I'm watching from wherever, whatever. All right. So without any further ado, we're going to bring this young man on. His name happens to be Mr. Marcus Crawford. Let's give it up for Marcus on this morning. Marcus, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us on today, and welcome to the show, Retro Philosophy.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
All right. You should be, man. You should be excited. First and foremost, man, how old are you?
So I'm 22. Yeah.
22. Man, I remember when I was 22. My goodness. Them were the days, man.
A couple years ago, right?
Yeah, just a couple of years ago. Look, let me just say this. Let me just jump right in and say this, man. Maximize your time, maximize your youth, and you know, bottle the zeal, bottle the newness, because pretty much everything you venture out to do is going to be a new venture for you. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy it, maximize it, appreciate it. And don't let anybody jeopardize it. Don't let anybody, because, you know, sometimes people who have tried what you're trying to do, and it may not be what you're doing professionally, right? But sometimes you got older folks who have tried things in life and it didn't work for them. So they become bitter. They become pessimists, you know, and they will. Oh boy, they will try to dawn on your parade, man. And so now I do think that, you know, growing up, I remember when I was coming up and had all these ideas, you know, it's good to have those who you can use as a soundboard, who you can, you know, but man, I encourage you to keep on moving forward, man. Encourage you to move forward. We've got Daryl watching with us on today. Mr. Catch Me If You Can. Thank you for joining us on this morning, brother. God bless you and heaven smile on you. All right, so Mr. Crawford, let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to just ask you a couple questions. I'm gonna start out with a few questions. What do you prefer? Okay, I'll say two things, and just off the top of your head, whichever one you prefer, you just let me know. Cat or dog?
Oh, yeah. Dog.
Okay, hot or cold?
Oh, the weather that it is now, give me hot for sure. It's way
okay. Definitely, man. I'm with you on that one, man. Beach or the mountains?
Oh, beach for sure.
Beach. Okay. That's what's up. Plane or train?
Plane for sure.
Get there quick. Ain't got time to be. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So, where you from?
So I'm from Florence, South Carolina originally, but right now I'm currently in the upstate area at Clemson University, so Clemson, South Carolina.
Clemson University. Tell me a little bit about that experience there, man. How has that been for you?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. My story hasn't always been at Clemson. I actually started out at Catawba College, which is a super small Division II school in
Hmm.
Salisbury, North Carolina, which I'm sure you're
Nice.
familiar with.
Uh-huh.
So I started out there for a year and a half and played basketball, and then my sophomore year came, and I kind of decided, Marcus, you're not going pro. So you're gonna make. And my grandma used to always tell me this, like, you're gonna make your money with your mind. And like the rebel in me always used to try and fight that and say like, no, like I'm gonna go pro, like I'm gonna make my money like playing ball. And then it kind of just hit me one day, and it kind of all clicked like that. And I was like, okay, the truth is, I'm gonna make make my money with my mind. And so once that kind of settled in, I was like, let me transfer, get a better education. And honestly, I had a lot more opportunity here, and it was a chance to come back in state, which was huge. And so a buddy of mine, best friend from back home, over the summer was like, bro, let's transfer, jokingly. And I was like, yeah, sure. And we applied for the spring semester at Clemson, which of our sophomore year, which is 2.5 years ago now, which is crazy.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it does. And so then we got accepted, and it kind of was just like all a God thing. Came on a tour here, and kind of just like God was calling me to be a part of something bigger than myself, and like still learn how to like shine like in a big environment. And I feel like since
Mhm.
I've gotten here, like I've been able to do that. And so with that, got to Clemson and instantly dived in. Um, and truthfully, for me, the big thing has been, I think there's just so much opportunity here. And not that
Mhm.
there's not opportunity at Catawba College. It was a great school. But obviously a bigger university, more alumni. So it's just the opportunities that I've had to like just connect with people because of saying like, oh, I go to Clemson University, you know? And then
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
being pretty good at
Nice.
football hasn't been too bad either.
Let me ask you this, because you started at school in Salisbury, right?
Yes, sir.
And your game plan was to go pro and make that big money.
Right. The plan was to go overseas and play ball,
Uh-huh.
and that was it. And it's crazy because of the fact that like I've always been better academically than I have athletically, no matter how much
Hmm.
I did that. But it was like okay, this is what I want to do because this is what the trend is. Not even the trend. This is what like culture teaches us, is the possibility to make money. We're not taught
Right.
to like make money like with our minds, like as Black males a lot of times. And so it was like, this is what culture says to go do, and this is what I'm going to go
Mhm.
do, you know?
I've always said that not only are we a resilient people, but we're very creative and we're very intelligent, man. And
Right.
for you to say, what our culture, I think you're on to something. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so I guess what I want to get to is, how was the transition from the dream to the reality, as it relates to you wanting to go play sports, and now you gotta shift mid.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
was that? How did you handle that? How did you work through that?
Truthfully, the hardest part of it was, I don't think we realize a lot of times like how much of an identity factor that like something becomes in our life until like we walk away from that thing. Like I remember the moment that I stopped playing, I went back to my dorm room and was like, okay, like what do I do now? Like who am I? Because I had no identity outside of basketball. And with that, that's when I realized like that was the hardest part to transition for me, was just like finding identity outside of just being an athlete. Because at the end of the day, like
Um,
we are so much more than that. And so once I was able to like kind of reach a new identity, and like for one, like being a child of God, but even more so like in being an intelligent Black man, like that's
uh-huh.
when it was a huge shift for me. And truthfully, like I've always been like a confident person. Like that's how my parents raised me. And
Hmm.
so like didn't necessarily like need more confidence like in who I was. But I think stepping into like an identity of like I'm a professional, and like that's not like a once I graduate in 4 years I'm a professional. It's a I'm a professional now. Um,
Right.
Once I stepped into that, I think opportunities just begin to open up, and that led to like that transition being a lot smoother, accepting that and taking everything that I was doing it as a professional.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. So, going forward from that experience, going forward, how have you been able to use that experience toward other obstacles, or maybe even upsets or disappointments?
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book right now called 10X by Grant Cardone. Great book.
Mhm.
And it talks about, and it like has these examples at the end where it like makes you question some things in your life. And it talks about, think of a time where you had to overcome something. Think of a time where the things that you believed you had to switch around. And for me, like that was that time where everything that I thought of for the past 11 years of my life being an athlete, and I was able to overcome that of not being an athlete anymore, transferring to a new school in the middle of the semester, a bigger university, and ultimately like trying to just thrive like as a college student. I think back to that time, and that's helped me now to be like, okay, if there's anything I'm struggling with, I've gotten through this, and it doesn't make sense why I can't do anything else. And especially like in real estate investing, for me, it's obviously like I'm a 22-year-old, and the last thing someone thinks of when they think of a real estate investor is the kid that's still in college. And with that, a lot of it is personal reflections of I know who I am, and so I'm able to think back to times where I was able to overcome something. And if I can overcome the transfer, and if I can overcome not being an athlete and transitioning from that life, then I can overcome stigmas of me being too young for real estate investing, stigmas of, oh, you don't have enough money for real estate investing, all these stigmas that are set on you because of your age or because of your race or whatever it is that you're in life. Like thinking back to that time, that's how you overcome that thing, you know?
So the young thing, 22 years old, you're starting out in college. Okay, so we understand that you were gonna go sports. You found out that, maybe that's not the best way for me to go. You switched up midway. You got over that hurdle. At what point did you know that real estate was going to be the direction you wanted to go?
Yeah, so I didn't know for a while, actually.
Okay.
My mom began to get her real estate license in beginning of spring last year, so about a year ago this time. And so I kind of had it in my ear a little bit, but wasn't like paying any attention to it like most college kids are, just being rebellious, trying to like think of my own way, like, oh, I don't want to take that route, like I want to take my own route. And from there, she kind of put it into my ear, and I work out at the summer camp in Arkansas, middle of nowhere. But it's a sports youth camp. And I went back out there again this summer and was having a conversation with someone out there whose dad happened to be a real estate investor, who had not real estate, a real estate agent. And somehow we just started talking about real estate. And I was like, oh yeah, my mom just got her license. And they were like, oh, that's crazy. And he was like, my dad's a real estate agent. And I was like, oh, cool. And so that kind of planted that seed. Okay. And then got back to Clemson over the summertime, probably about June, July-ish. And some just said, like, reach out to your buddy that you were talking to a couple months ago about real estate. And so reached out to him. And I was like, hey, like, you think your dad would let me shadow him? And reached out to his dad. His dad was like, sure, come join me. And I went and shadowed him for a couple of weeks and instantly kind of knew this is the business I wanted to be in. And so my first side of things was on the agent side of things. And just seeing, because I love people, like that's my passion. And ultimately, I believe like we're just here to impact people. And that's, at the end of the day, like that's all I want to do is impact people in a better way. Good. And so sitting there with his dad and like going on these like showings and these different house tours, doing that, I was able to see like how much of a people's business it is and how you're truthfully like you're in a person's life during a pretty incremental moment. Like they're buying a home. Like that's one of the biggest purchases that people make. Like statistically, it says that like some people think buying a home is more important than like their marriage. So it's like, it's a huge moment.
Absolutely.
And so you have an opportunity to impact their life in that time, probably one of the biggest moments of their life. And so then from there, started pursuing getting my real estate license. And once I started pursuing that, the gym that I go to up here, a CrossFit gym, and I ran into these real estate investors, and I was telling them like, yeah, I'm pursuing my license. They're like, oh, have you ever thought about investing? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, do I need the license for that? And they're like, no. And so started talking about that. And then I began to get curious about it. And as an agent, you make 3 to 5% commission. As a real estate investor, you're making it about 70% of that. And so
a little difference.
70 or 3 to 5. And that math was pretty simple for me. And I'm not knocking agents. I think agents are needed. Just right. Investors are. My mom's an agent. So with that, I was like, I'm going to choose the investing side. And so instantly I just started diving in just taking in knowledge, because I think that's where it starts at. I think it starts with knowledge. And read a book on how to retire early through real estate investing. That was my first one. And then investing in real estate with a little bit of money down. And then all the things just kind of like kept piling up. And so that's kind of how I got introduced to it. And then it finally just clicked for me. I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I have right here. Would definitely recommend this book to anyone. And so read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I used to play the game all the time as a kid. My dad would always be like, we're about to play this cash flow game. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. But that's what the book is talking about. It's made by the same guy. And so read that book and it just clicked. Like,
nice.
3 ways that people build wealth is business, stock market, or real estate. And if you can get 2 of those 3 things, you're good. And that's all I'm trying to do is build wealth, like truthfully. And I don't have a problem dreaming big. And I think if you dream big and fall short, at least you hit the stars, you know?
I used to say the same thing.
Yeah. You know, my goal is to become the wealthiest like Black man in America.
Okay.
And so, and like retire by the age of 30. And I think real estate allows everyone an opportunity to have a chance at wealth. Real estate doesn't look at your age, doesn't look at your race. Real estate looks at your knowledge. And so that's one thing that I can control. And so fell in love with real estate investing, fell in love with real estate agent side of things first and fell in love with investing. And from there kind of just dived into knowledge and plugging in and networking and then just getting started.
So you got 8 years.
Yeah,
you got 8 years.
No time to play with.
no time to play with it, bro. You that means you got to, we had Mr. Green. He was on the other day, Kevin Anthony Green, and he has a formula, and it's A1 plus A2 plus A3 divided by A4. A1 is awareness, A2 is assessment, A3 is action, and A4 is accountability. And one of the things that he says is a dream, is not a goal. So in other words, we've got to leave from the dreaming stage or phase or process and actually begin to, check things out, assess everything, and move from there. So, if you've got years, man, that means you've got to, and 8 years is a long time. You do your thing right, man. I mean, that goal you could even hit that goal in 4 years, 3 years, who knows?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. I used to always tell anybody that would listen, and I try to drill it into my kids' head as well. It's not always what you know, but who you know.
Right. Like we're living in an age where it's like a lot of times I think knowledge and time is the 2 most valuable things we have. And I make that face because I was having this conversation with someone a couple of days ago about like just the power of reading, but then also like the power of knowing people. Like you can know every book in the world and you can know everything that's important, but if no one knows you know it, and if you don't know anyone that's doing it, then like you're not moving anywhere. And I think a lot of times that's what happens to us in this area I'm passionate about is like we have these big dreams, not goals, we have these big dreams, and we never bring them to fruition because we never saw anyone that went ahead and did it for us. And it's like sometimes there's not that example and that blueprint to follow. Like sometimes it had to be that blueprint, that model to follow. And so I think, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, I was gonna say, and I think a lot of times, like as a Black male, like I look at, okay, like who is my blueprint to follow? And that's tough to find, especially like in real estate investing. And it takes some digging and searching. Like I can't just type in, and it pops up. Like it takes some digging and searching and finding. And a lot of times it may not be anyone. And I'm fine being that person, and I'll go ahead and I'll pave that path because then I can affect the next generation, and my legacy lives on after me.
That's some serious stuff you're talking right there. Because it saddens me when you have someone who is quote unquote successful, but the success doesn't carry on beyond them. In other words, when they die, their success just they didn't set anyone up. They didn't prepare anyone. And I can remember growing up, let's see, I started my first business. I was 17. It wasn't a big thing, but for me, it was extremely huge. And so my father used to always say, whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. You know, I
Yeah.
don't think he really understood what he was saying, or, you know, so he kind of taught me how to dream, but he never really instructed me how to bring the dream into reality. Right.
Mhm.
So when I was 17, I was in my last year of high school at Commerce High School. And I told my dad, I'm going to open up this store. And he's like, you know, he was all against it,
Yeah.
in his era, success was getting a decent job, which he had, with great benefits, which he had, and then you could retire, and so that was a good line of success for him. But
Right.
for me, that was far from the truth.
Yeah.
Um, how did if so, how did your parents set you up, for the direction that you are on now? What kind of lessons? How was your upbringing as it relates to those things?
Yeah. I'm really glad you asked this question because they would kill me if I didn't talk about this. But truthfully, my parents both raised me with like an entrepreneur mindset. And
Good.
so growing up, my mom, like I've always seen like my parents grind, like my mom does health insurance, but also, like I said, like she's a real estate agent on the side. She also has like her own jewelry business, where she does paparazzi. And so like I've seen my parents grind. My dad, engineer, but also does credit repair. So a ton of things that, like, just growing up as a kid, my parents instilled in me, like, make your own money and figure out how to make money. Like as a kid, very similar to you, I had my candy shop, where I would go to Sam's and buy these huge boxes of candy. And I would go to beauty salons and set them up. And that was my business. And that was like in elementary school. And then, so this is like first to fourth grade. And then third grade, second and third grade, I got smart with it and realized like the types of pencils that kids wanted. We used to love like the little small pencils. And so I would go home at night, buy a whole pack of pencils, and just like, I'm going to, I'm setting them down. And the next day I'm coming to school with the erasers, the pencils, the grips, and I'm selling them for like 50 cents to $1. My principal wasn't happy about it, but that, like, from a young age, like my parents instilled in me that. And so when I got in trouble about the pencils and erasers, I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "You told me to make my own business." And so, and my dad, on the other hand, is like, "Proud of you, keep going."
Yeah.
And so, like, from a young age, like my parents just instilled in me the idea of like your future is like your control, and like I'm not, and I'll say, like, I'm built to work for someone, but I'm not built to work for anyone, And so, like, with that, like, I have an entrepreneur mindset. And so being boxed in and working a 9 to 5, that's not attractive to me, truthfully. Like, I like freedom, and I love financial freedom. But I like that idea of being able to create my own future, and not being held to a box. Because ultimately, I believe, like, once you're able to create your own future, it's very similar to you. Like, you can go business after business after business because you understand the process.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I think it starts with the mindset. Like, wealth isn't a figure, Obviously, like, there's a figure to reach your financial freedom to cover all your needs to where you don't have to work. But wealth is a mindset before anything. Like, people that are wealthy, they're not born wealthy a lot of times. Like, they have a mindset that they're going to be wealthy. Yes.
Right.
I read a book right now, actually, right here too, Wealth Choice. It's about Black millionaires. And it talks about, like, a lot of these people didn't start rich, but like they had the mindset that they were always going to be rich. And so I think having that mindset instilled in me from a young age, it allowed me to dream big. And I don't dream small at all.
That's good. That's good. And you shouldn't.
Right.
If you dreaming small, man, you come on, man. Well, anyway, all right, let me move on. So, I'll get on the soapbox, man. Mr. Wilson has joined the feed, and he made an interesting comment. I want your insight on this, your perspective on this. He says your network is indicative of your net worth. Your network is indicative of your net worth. What does that mean to you? And where do you?
That's an amazing quote. First off, it's the truth. And I think we talked about this a little bit before the call. Like, you're only as strong as the people that, like, you're surrounded with and the people that you know. And you can't expect to reach this net worth of things if you don't know people that are at that network worth of things,
Right.
And
exactly.
And I think a lot of times we think like, oh, I can hang around with everybody that I grew up with, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because like keep people that are close to you close, yes, but like I can hang around everybody I grow up with and not hang out with the millionaires over in this club because like my friends over here are going to get mad at me. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like you have to be able to grow your network so your net worth grows. And they're a direct reflection of each other, and there's a correlation.
So 22 years old, I think that's a perfect age for a lot of things. Number one. But I know by the time I was 22, I had gone through a few things. And so I want to ask you this, based on what we've just said and some of the other things that you've said, have you already experienced the reality that everybody that comes with you can't go with you?
Yeah. So like I said, from Florence, South Carolina, obviously not a huge town, not a huge city. And I think growing up as a kid, no, not even growing up as a kid. My freshman year of college, I had a professor, Earl Gibbons, amazing guy. And he sat us down, freshman seminar, told us, the people that you're friends with back home, they aren't going to be your friends anymore once you get out of college, 9 times out of 10 if you grow. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, my homeboys from home are still my homeboys now.
Right.
And that hasn't necessarily changed, but our relationship has changed a little bit. And so I remember sitting in that class, hearing that, thinking to myself, like, oh, that's not the truth. Like, that won't be my story. And now, senior year of college, like last 3 months left, I look back now and I'm like, that was 100% the truth. Because of the fact of like, I just like, my thoughts and dreams aren't in Florence anymore. My thoughts and dreams aren't even probably in South Carolina anymore, you know? And so I want to be bigger than like what I came from. And that's not saying that I don't want to give back to my city, because I love Florence. And I think it has a ton of room and ton of opportunity for growth. But with that, I think we had to begin to think outside of the box and stop being so comfortable and stuck in a friend circle, stop being so stuck in a hometown, stop being so stuck in family traditions. And so like, I'm still close with my friends from back home. Yes. But like, I don't talk to them on an everyday basis. And it's not because like, oh, I don't love them the same, but it's because like I'm doing other things, you know?
Absolutely.
If I take the time and talk to them 7 days a week, then I'm missing the time to talk to other investors, to talk to other people whose net worth are my net worth isn't where I want it to be. And so I think it's just like you grow in a mindset. And I don't think the time that you spend talking to someone is a reflection of how much you love them. You know, love can be from a distance. And so still have love for Florence, still have love, like I still have family there. Still have love for my friends that I grew up with from a young age. But also at the same time, like there's a growth mentality that I have, you know?
And you got to get it. You got goals. I mean, you know, you in 8 years, you're going to be sitting on some tropical island, relaxing, watching your money work for you, because you understood early the importance of building wealth and not making money. Some people, they make money, but they're not building wealth. Some of the greatest advice I've got in my life, this one brother, and I talk about it all the time, his name was Reverend James Sowell Jr. And he told me one day, he said, young man, forget what you think you know and learn what you don't. I mean, it was, I'm telling you, it was just, it revolutionized me and it blessed me in so many ways over and over and over again, just applying that principle to my life. What's some of the best advice you have received in your life thus far? That's
a great question. I think the best advice I've ever gotten, and I think this ultimately like shaped my life, and I don't know who I heard it from, and it's a common quote, but it says, become comfortable being uncomfortable. And I heard it back when I was playing basketball, but it's carried over into so many other areas of my life. Like, I don't think I would have transferred if it wasn't for it. I don't think I would have gotten into real estate if it wasn't for it. I don't think I would be pursuing what I'm pursuing after graduation. I don't think I'd be pursuing like financial freedom by 30, because of the fact of like think about it, become comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's saying like, if once it becomes comfortable, I'm not doing it anymore. Like, and that's why I transferred truthfully. Like, I talked to seniors that were at Catawba, and they said, I feel like I plateaued out my junior year. And that thought scared me, because it wasn't, I don't want to be comfortable, because if I'm comfortable, I'm not growing. And so it's constantly the thought of, okay, I'm going to master this thing. And once I'm good at it, all right, it's time for me to go. Like, once like I'm comfortable in it, all right, got to go on to something else, because I'm not trying to plateau out, and I'm not trying to just be stuck in this box, because constant growth is what's going to help me reach goals. And it's the same thing with learning. Like, continuous education and like lifelong learning is a real thing. And I don't always believe learning's in a classroom, but that's a story for another day. But on that, I think that we had to become comfortable just being uncomfortable, and it can't be stuck in the things that we grew up with, the mindsets that we grew up with. It can't be stuck in the hometowns that we grew up with. It can't be stuck in
Right.
what culture says you can do. Like there's so much more out there. And so constantly just trying to become uncomfortable.
Man, that is awesome advice, man. Thanks for sharing that. I definitely put that in the comments because I need everybody to see that even if they're watching it by the replay, become comfortable being uncomfortable. Let me ask you this, because excuse me, basketball was a big thing for you. It
Yeah.
sounds like it was a passion, sounds like something that you really loved. And as you said, it was where your identity was wrapped up in.
Right.
You got the reality that you had to make a shift, and I'm sure that was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What lessons did you pull or bring or carry over from your time playing basketball? Because a lot of people say sports is good for kids. It teaches them discipline, this, that, and the other. What life lessons were you able to carry over into your now newfound projectile in terms of your career from basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question. And once again, was having a conversation with my friend from back home who's like a sister to me, who I talk to probably on a daily basis, just about like mindset and growth. And that's a prime example of like some friends are going to grow with you. And because of like they are continuing to grow their mindset as well. But we talked about like how, and she's still playing basketball up at a school in North Carolina. And we talked about how the things that like we learned from sports has carried over so much further in our life. I think sports made me an extremely structured person. And so I have friends now be like, oh my gosh, like, why are you such a checklist person? Like, why are you such a, like not even organized is the word. Like I am organized, but like, why are you such a person that like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And this is how my day is going to go. And it's because of like sports that I've learned structure. It's because of sports that I've learned that like overcoming things. I wasn't always the most athletic. I wasn't always the quickest, but I was going to work my tail off and overcome it. And so I think I gained a work ethic from that is unreal. And so, and I think that's nice to say or like good to say, but legitimately, like I'm not being outworked. And I think that started with being an athlete. And so I think things like structure, discipline, the obvious things that people talk about are what I kind of gained from sports, but I think they transition over into your real life more than you realized. And
Okay.
I didn't realize the structure thing until this, like maybe 2 or 3 months ago when I was having a conversation with someone and they were like, why are you just like such a checklist person? Like I use this app on my phone called Notion and it has a to-do list. It has a daily tracker that I put in there. It has a checklist. Like it has all these things like, this is what's going to happen in my day. And for me, I thought that was normal until they were like, that's not normal at all. But, it's things like that where I realized like, hey, like this came from being an athlete. And so I definitely encourage youth to be involved in sports, even if it's not what you want to do in college. But I think sports builds a lot of things in you. And I'm not saying the sports is the only way to build it at all, but I think some type of structure and team organization. And so like for me, one of my huge things that I want to do, people are always like, why do you want to become wealthy? And obviously it's for financial freedom. It's for spending time with my family. It's for being able to spend time with my future kids and do all those things and being able to provide in a way that like leaves a legacy that my kids can step into. But then also for the fact of big dream, big picture is I want to build a huge sports complex for kids to come and be in community because I believe that sports has a huge impact on kids' life and allows them to kind of see opportunities that are there.
So you kind of answered my next question. I didn't want to interrupt you, but you did it. So let me just go ahead and ask it now that you've already given me the answer. So we're gonna just put this out there. 3 years from now, you'll be closer to your goal of financial freedom, or you said what? You're gonna retire at 30, right?
Yes, sir.
So let's just say 3 years from now, you are so far beyond where you thought you would be in 3 years, and you've got enough surplus and enough flow that you can reach out and maybe this basketball or sports facility. Will that be in Greenville? Excuse me, not Greenville. Will it be in your hometown?
That's a great question. Unsure. I'm definitely God where you want it to be. That's where we'll put it.
Nice.
And so obviously like I want to do a ton from Florence just because like that's where I grew up. But also there's other areas of like this country that needs to be impacted, but also other areas of the nation and the world that need to be impacted
Yeah.
as well. And so just continue like spreading that wealth out.
Yeah.
And I would love for it to become like a brand, you know, and not just like
Nice.
one thing in this one place. Um,
Nice.
and so wherever that first one may be is going to be wherever God wants it to be. But
Yeah.
kind of also to fill in that question of what do I want to do in 3 years if I'm just above and beyond. And I think this is going to happen before 3 years. But
Nice.
the thought process of it is another thing that I want to do is build a Black mentorship or a minority mentorship or a color mentorship where young males, as I was talking about earlier, are able to connect with professionals, whether it's in sales, which I'm passionate about, or whether it's in engineering, whether it's in radio broadcasting, whether it's in podcasting, whatever it may be, but able to connect with someone that looks like them and they're able to have that blueprint of what to follow. And whether that was like lunch once a month or whatever, but it's an opportunity in a program that I want to put in a place where these young men can come and see a blueprint and be inspired.
Nice. I mentioned this yesterday, and because I believe it fits in here, I'm gonna mention it again. When I started my barbershop years ago, you know, it was slow. And so I got to do what I got to do. That's my philosophy. I got to do what I got to do. So I went and got a job working for the school system, bus monitoring. Right. And I've got all these kids on there and these kids is going wild. And so I'm trying to interact with them and I'm trying to get their attention so that I can calm them down. So I started interacting with them every day intentionally. And I would ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, and it was crazy because when you got to the little Caucasian kids, they always had an answer, whether it was far-fetched or whatever, but they had an answer. A police officer, a doctor, a lawyer, you know, this, that, or the other. And you got to our little kids and a lot of them didn't know. They didn't know. And I think it goes back to what you said as it relates to, you know, when you were selling pencils in school, you know, your parents kind of instilled it in you to, you know, I don't want to say hustle, but they instilled business in you. You saw an example, you know what I mean? So for you to go in that direction, it's like, it's an option. But a lot of our kids don't see those options. The only options they see is, you know, a drug dealer, you know, basketball, you know, sports, you know what I mean? And then if they don't cut the bill, they don't foot the bill for that, then they're usually left back to the other options that are not so favorable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100% would agree. And now, I think that, go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say that I think that, and I'm not saying this like, so we as African Americans can play victim, because I don't think that, like, I think obviously situations are a little bit harder for us, but I don't think that us playing victim helps our situation at all.
It does not.
Yeah. And so for me, I think a lot of it starts with just educating ourselves and getting out of these chains. Because I'll never forget, like, I came to Clemson and I was sitting in class and we were obviously going through the usual first day of class. Everyone talks about like, oh, their career goals, and people were naming stuff. And I was like, I'm 20 years old. And this is like 2 years ago. That's crazy again. But it's like, I'm 20 years old. And I've never heard of some of this stuff that you're saying. And it's like, that's ridiculous, you know? And I grew up with a family that like taught me entrepreneurial mindsets, taught me business. And so like, I can't imagine someone that wasn't taught that, you know, like what is an option for them? And so that's when like, it kind of hit me like, there's a difference and there's a clear like divide. And then from that, like recently, like I've been beginning to like study the thought of like, what does like why is wealth recycled? And I believe it's recycled because like as African Americans, we're taught a lot of times, okay, let me find my education in the school system, and the school system is going to teach me everything I need to know. And it's like, as African Americans, that's what we're thinking. And people that are white or Caucasian people are thinking like, oh, like I'm going to educate my son on business. I'm going to educate my daughter on business, on our family business and outside of class. And so at dinner, they're talking about business. They're talking about stocks. They're talking about real estate. And we're sitting here talking about, oh, these J's just dropped. Or, oh my God, this is what happened. Or, oh my God, this is the gospel of the town. Like, we just aren't talking about the things that matter a lot of times, like as a people. And so,
you know,
go ahead.
I remember when I had opened, when I was back home, I had a shop, Miracles Hair Salon, right? And I went to look at the building and the owners were all the way in California, right?
Right.
So They literally sent me the keys and they sent me a copy of the lease, and they said if you like, they told me to go in and check it out, and if I liked it, sign the lease and send it back. So I did. We took the lease, and so the building needed some repairs, and I was actually trying to purchase the building. I wanted to buy the building, right? I saw the potential in it. Long story short, the owner, he had bought that in a cluster of properties that he had picked up. Right. And so he flies out, and he's got this little kid with him, his son. Kid must have been about maybe 8, 9 years old, and while we're walking around the building and we're trying to talk business, he's turning to his son and saying, "What do you think?" And he's literally including his son in on the negotiations and everything. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow. But what he was doing was he was teaching his son at that early of an age to understand the position of power, to understand, negotiations and things like that. We don't see that. Right. Well, I shouldn't say we don't see that, but it usually is not the norm for us coming up.
No, not at all. And I think and I'm not saying that everyone has the opportunity to be taught a business mindset, because maybe you came from a background that was tougher. And and that's the truth for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that you can't educate yourself. Once again, this book, $8.99 on Amazon. That's less than $10. Go buy it. Start with the fact of education. And I think we have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have Google. There's so many things that we have access to that there's no reason or no excuse for being uneducated. And so for me, that's just a constant focus that I'm trying to harp on. It's just educating myself. At the end of the day, that's making me a better real estate investor. I was on a conversation with someone a couple of days ago. They're their mid-30s, and they started listing off all these terms, and I was like, "Oh, you're talking about this," and they're like, "Oh, your stuff," and it's yeah. And I think that's a lot of times where my credibility comes from being 22, and I get to talk to other investors. And the same knowledge as at age 40, I know at age 22, and I'm not saying I know it all. But I'm knowledgeable, and I'm not saying that in a cocky or arrogant way, but saying it in a way I've taken the time to educate myself, and I'm not using an excuse. And my mom wasn't a real estate investor, my dad wasn't a real estate investor. Entrepreneurs, yeah, but investors, no. And so it's self-teaching,
Yeah, that's good. So with that said and done, let me ask you this, because I can look back in my life when I was at not so good a place, and there was an older gentleman who really took time to pour into me. He took time to be a blessing to me, right? And in such a way that I feel as though a lot of stuff that I'm doing today is because of the time he took to share with me. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you have a young man who's your same age. He even kind of looks like you, but yet still he doesn't think like you. How do you help that individual see things on your level, or enlarge his perspective, if you will?
Right. Are you saying right now at the age I am now, or are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, right. You're going for coffee after the show, and you bump into some dude, and he conversation ensues because you guys from appearance have a lot in common. You know what I'm saying? And but you find out that this dude is a whole different direction. Do you just have a conversation and go about your business? Do you go a step further to maybe try to put him onto game? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. But I think a lot of it is taking the time to just sit there and have that conversation from the beginning. Because I think a lot of times, I'm a huge person on I believe we're called to love God, love people, the end. Life is simple. Those are the 3 things we're called to do. And so for one, I'm having the conversation just because I want to love people well. And then for 2, I love talking about real estate investing. And so I'll probably ramble on for hours about it. But in general, having that conversation with them, I'm going to have that conversation, but then also I'm going to recommend go check out this person, go check out Max Maxwell, a black male from Charlotte that does real estate investing. Go check out Robert Kiyosaki, guy that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. Go read Wealth Choice. Do these things. Check out Grant Cardone. Check out Gary Vaynerchuk. All these things. I'm going to give you resources to go to. And if you need me, call me. And so being an option and an outlet, because like you don't know what that's going to lead to down the road. And I'm not saying like do it for a self perspective of like, oh, I can benefit from this, but like do it from perspective of like I can help someone else.
Right.
Like a lot of times wealth doesn't start with a numerical figure. I don't believe it has anything to do with a numerical figure at all a lot of times, but like sometimes it starts with serving someone where you're at. And for me, we were talking about it earlier, like the plan for me within the next couple weeks, or next week, actually, I'm going to go and put that out there. Next week, I'm dropping a YouTube just for the fact of like, I want to be able to educate people on the things that are possible through real estate investing, and like track my real estate investing journey to like inspire. And so, yeah, like being able to use my story to inspire someone, but then also being able to educate someone. And that's what like I would try and do in that moment. I'm going to try and inspire that young man. And then I'm also going to try and educate him.
That's what's up. Marcus, we thank you for joining the show. We're not done yet, but we want to just pause to let everybody know his information is streaming or scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you want to reach out to him and give him some kudos, give him whatever. Maybe you have a piece of property that you want to get rid of. Maybe it's a house in your neighborhood that has not been attended to, because I don't believe he's going to discriminate on whether or not it's been painted or needs a roof, because, when you talk about investing, you realize that some stuff you take on is going to need work. But I think the thing about it is, especially when it comes to an investor, it takes a special kind of person, because you've got to be able to see beyond the current circumstance and see the potential. That goes a long way. But he's got his telephone number there. We've got his email address, and we also have his Instagram account there, so you can follow him there on Instagram, and you can also reach out to him if you have maybe you got I don't know, maybe you hit the lotto, you got a couple extra $100,000 in the bank, and he'll find he'll get you right. He'll get you right. So make sure you take advantage of the information that's scrolling at down the screen there. But Marcus, let me get back to it now. You being an investor, and as we were saying earlier, it's not always what you know, but who you know. Man, that's going to put you in a position to really come across all different kinds of people from all different walks of life. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it could also put you in a place where you can connect the dots. Leroy might, you might run into Leroy at Starbucks, and conversation, whatever. And he might not know how to flip houses, but he might know how to work a hammer like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And when you're flipping houses, you need people who can get the work done,
Right.
I mean, I just think it's interesting to see things like that. If you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100% would agree. Like I've had that experience to where there's a house I'm looking at now up here in the Clemson area. So y'all be praying that I get this house. But trying to figure out like how I plan on financing it. And so with that was having a conversation with a guy that I met who does real estate investing in the upstate area. And I've just been able to meet so many people, and literally was able to talk to this guy and like run numbers with him on this property. And after running numbers with him, realized like, okay, like here's where I need to fix my numbers. Like here's where it's going to make or break me in the numbers. But like having that networking connection of, okay, I know this person that I can go to about numbers. And then I also have the people that I met at my CrossFit gym who I can talk to about wholesaling.
Right.
I also have this Black woman who I worked with in the upstate area doing wholesale calling for her. And so like I can reach out to her about like, oh, I'm trying to commercial wholesale this property back home in Florence, and I'm trying to wholesale. And so know someone that does commercial property, and know someone that does wholesaling, know someone that does just regular buy and holds. And so I'm able to connect all these people and like connect all these sources of knowledge. And truthfully, like this woman that wholesales, like if she finds a property, and it's like, oh, I get off my hands. Okay, I know 3 or 4 buyers in the upstate area that are looking for property right now. And so, and would love to know some more. So if you are looking to buy, or if you're looking to sell, please let me know. Definitely reach out to me. Also definitely follow me. And
well, I've got a couple things, man, I might have to holler at you about, man. So we might definitely have to talk about that offline.
I got plenty of time.
Okay, good. So let me ask you one more question. I won't take up all of your morning, but let me ask you this. Somebody's watching, and they might hit your number later. And then let's just say hypothetically, they hit you with a question, something like this. Man, I was listening to you. I like what you're doing. I would like to get started. Where can I start? How can I get started? Do they need a lot of money? Do they need a lot of education? Do they need a lot of this? What does the average guy who just got fired from the Burger Doodle and he's tired of these 9 to 5s as it relates to, he understands that the 9 to 5 is not going to do it for him, because they don't pay you enough to get rich anywhere.
No.
They pay you enough so that they can get rich.
Yeah.
And so when you understand that, you begin to lean toward, try to build some wealth somewhere, somehow. So how could someone get started doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I think my dad said this on the podcast that he was on with yours. He said, you're either working to make someone else money or you're working to make you money.
Yeah, one or the other.
And so this is a prime example of that, like work to make you money. And first off, like the wealthy make their money work for them. And that once I heard that, I was, oh my gosh, baffled. But I would say like the biggest thing in a huge misconception of real estate investing is the thought of, I need $1 million, or I need $45,000, $50,000 or $100,000 saved up to go buy this house in all cash. And it's like, no, like you don't. A lot of times, like there's real estate investing options where you're putting low money down, FHA loans, VA loans if you're a veteran. If you're a first-time homeowner, use FHA. If you're trying to buy your first home, and I'm just giving out free game right here, but like if you're trying to buy your first home and it needs repairs, look into 203K loans. Find private money lenders, find hard money lenders. And I'm not saying that's always the best option, but like run the numbers on it.
Right.
And figure out how to run those numbers by looking up stuff in YouTube, how to use private money, how to run comps on private money. And so you can learn all these things like on YouTube. You can do wholesaling, and first off, wholesaling is not free. Wholesaling takes some money, and it's a huge misconception. And wholesaling is not easy. Or people try and tell you on, wholesale, like it's easy money. It's not. It's hard work, and it's a second job. And so, but that's also an option to where like you're not putting a ton of money down, but maybe you put in a few hundred. And so there's definitely plenty of options out there of like how you can real estate invest. Like you can buy a house, rehab it, refinance it, get your money back, and have some equity. And so there's plenty of options out there to where you can invest in real estate with little money, where you can invest in real estate with other people's money, where you can invest in real estate with what you have. Real estate investing doesn't call for you to be rich. Maybe you can partner with someone in your family that has a good bit of money, and then you have a good bit of money, put that together, y'all buy a property. And maybe you're making $50 of cash flow a month, and that's not a lot. That's $600 for the month, for the year. But that property appreciates. You bought it at $100,000, it appreciates to $200,000 in the next 5-10 years. Okay, you just made $100,000 in 10 years.
Nice.
Nice. And that's $10,000 extra on top of the $600 that you're making per year. And so with that, like just take the time to study. And I say the place to start is starting with like knowledge, and starting with like educating yourself. So some things that I recommend, there's a website called, and I'm not getting paid for this or nothing, but like there's a website called biggerpockets.com. And it's a free website. You can purchase a membership. I do the membership just because it gives you access to a little bit more. But they have like webinars. They have podcasts. They have a podcast called Bigger Pockets Real Estate, Bigger Pockets Real Estate Rookie. All of these things talking about real estate. They have business podcasts, finance podcasts, and it's huge. There's also a guy called Max Maxwell who does wholesaling, and actually in North Carolina, Charlotte area. And he does a ton of stuff on YouTube with real estate. There's a guy that does wholesaling, a black male that does wholesaling, called Marcus Maloney. And so there's a ton of people and resources I can go on for days about listing, but take the time to build your knowledge up. And I think the biggest thing that I would harp on, and this is where like I got stuck in and felt like it's a constant battle every day. Me and you talked about this on the phone a while back, of like being stuck in analysis paralysis. Like you're never going to know it all. You're never going to be in the perfect situation to it's never going to be the perfect timing, but just do it. And I'm not saying do that like blindly and walk in like, I'm going to invest, but like build the knowledge base up, take this right steps, and then go, like take daily steps and daily actions that bring you closer to, like, there's no reason every day why you shouldn't be progressing to where you're trying to go.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think just taking daily actions, daily consistent actions. Simple.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
So it's out there. The information is out there. We just have to make those steps. And sometimes we're holding on to something so tightly till we can never grab hold to what's really out there for us.
Right.
And I think it's because sometimes it's because of fear. We're
Oh,
afraid
for
that if
sure.
because sometimes in order to go after your dream, you might have to quit that job. And I'm not telling you to quit your job. I don't know your situation.
Right.
Um, but sometimes you have to take that leap of faith. And with that said and done, let's shift for a little bit, because I keep hearing Jesus fall out of your spirit. I keep hearing so obviously you have a strong foundation in God. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir. Yeah, grew up in the not about to get my testimony all out here, but grew up in the church as a kid growing up. But I don't think like I had religion. I didn't have relationship.
Uh-huh.
And then I think going to college and like really wrestling with some things, and then
Hmm.
like not playing ball, like having to find identity.
Hmm.
That was tough. And I think that's where I begin to like gain like active faith.
Okay.
And I think
Okay.
active faith is actually taking steps and like living for God rather than just
Hmm.
like, okay, I have to do this religious thing. I have to go to this religious event. I got to go to church on Sunday. I got to go do this. I got to go do this. And it's like, God just wants to be in a relationship with you. Um,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, strong faith based, man. And so that obviously like stems, and it's hard. It's hard to be a man of business and be a man of God. And I don't think we talk about that enough, and like how to like put those two things together. And
Yeah.
so that's one thing like I'm trying to figure out daily of like
What
how do
would you
I
say?
and
What would be the difficult aspect of that?
yeah, the difficult aspect of it is like business and like wealth is like it's a worldly thing. But also like that's the tough part of it, but also like in it, like God can use it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
trying to figure out how not to be greedy and be like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And it's like, well, what do you want it for? And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
where it matters. If you're using it to serve God, perfect, lovely.
Yeah.
Do it. And so, but like that's hard. Like I'm not saying I wake up every morning like, oh, I want to go donate $50,000 a day. No, I'm like,
Well,
you know,
serving God is not always about donating either.
yeah,
I mean, you
sometimes
can,
it's about time.
yeah, sometimes you see, when we talk about these people who grew up in situations that are less fortunate than us,
Mhm.
sometimes the answer or the solution for them is not giving them 20 grand. It's not giving them a free car. We've tried to bless people, and we have this joke at our church. My wife, we say we ain't giving nobody else a car, because every time we give them a car, they drive right out of our church, right out of our lives. and,
Yeah.
and and so because we have literally sown vehicles in people because they were in need.
Mhm.
But sometimes it's not giving them the money or the material things, but it's helping to empower them to achieve more than just that. You know what I'm saying? And
100%.
so that's one thing that I've come to understand. You can't just it's not. Kev said it great the other day. They have an initiative, Seeds of the Father, and their thing is they're trying to get people to understand, Father specifically, that the kid needs your presence more
Yes.
than he needs your presence. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Come
And
on. Yeah.
so, yeah. So I thought that was extremely powerful. I'll share it. I'll share it everywhere.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said earlier, future kids. So how many kids would you like to have?
Uh, this is a long time down the road. Like I got plenty of time. Um,
Okay. Okay. You do. You do.
um, two. Let's go with two.
Two.
Yeah.
Two. They told me two was better than too many, so I stopped at two as well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm an only
Yeah.
child.
What?
Figure I might as well, change that up.
Yeah, You got to break the cycle. You got to break the cycle. So the future Mrs. Crawford, who is she gonna be? What she's gonna be like?
Definitely a woman of God.
Okay,
And definitely like someone that just pushes me and challenges me daily. And have someone in my life right like that right now who's been a blessing. And she's amazing. But she
nice,
challenges me, she pushes me, but also like she's ambitious too. And
good,
so
good.
like I think that's the biggest thing, like being able to have intellectual conversation But also more than anything, like having that person, which I think this is important for anyone, having that person to where it's not all business and we can get away from business and just like joke and laugh. And they make sure like, okay, like you've talked about real estate for 72 hours. Like let's talk about something else, you know? And so I think that's huge just for anybody, you know?
So how long, if it's okay that I go there, so how long have you been with this young lady?
Couple months, not long, but we've known each other
Okay.
going on about a year or so now. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Would you, and maybe it's too early to say, but let me just put it this way. And if you can elaborate, then that's fine. So I know when I met my girlfriend, we were 15 when we met, you know, we met in high school, my first year, her second, my first year, her second year. Yeah. Right. I think it was like that. And man, I mean, you know, it changed my life. It changed my life, man, you know, and she was there with me. She was there for me. And it's really amazing thing. So I guess what I'm getting at, man, love, it's an amazing thing, man. It's an amazing thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Yeah. Yeah. So but that's that. We don't got to go any further. We don't got to go any deeper. You know, you know that we'll save that stuff for another show. We do that on Fridays on What's Love Got to Do with It. See, I'm an advocate for love and relationship, and so, but yeah. So, but it's all good. Hey, look, we wish you the best, man. And folks, as I said, the information is available to reach out to Mr. Crawford. Telephone number is 843-624-2104. You can also meet him on Instagram at the Marcus Crawford, and the email address is mcrawfor20@gmail.com. Anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Crawford, before we get out of here?
No, first off, thank you for having me for sure. You've been a huge blessing, not just to me, but also just like to the community. And so, and the people that you're reaching out to, never underestimate the work that you're doing. It starts with literally just impacting one person at a time. You may not see the fruit from it now, but believe me, like you're having an impact. And so thank you for that. To everyone listening and everyone that may listen to this, definitely reach out to me via phone, via text, via email, on Instagram. And I mentioned it here for the first time, like next week, dropping a YouTube channel just on educating on real estate. If you're looking to buy property, if you're looking to sell property, let me know. If you're looking to invest with your money and with your time, anything, let me know. I would love to work together with anyone. I would love to talk about real estate. I would love to help someone become better in real estate, gain the knowledge in real estate. I just want to have an impact. And so, yeah, let's do it. Thank you.
All right. What do you do for fun, Marcus?
For fun? Love to read, but also a big CrossFit guy. Huge, like my CrossFit box here at Clemson, CrossFit Clemson is family, you know?
Nice.
And so that's a lot of spare time, but also getting into golf. It's pretty relaxing, but also still love playing ball when I get a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Make sure you send me the link once you get the YouTube channel up and going, and so we can also share your content from time to time here on our show. I'm a big component in spreading the love.
Yeah.
There's a brother. He's in the Charlotte area. His name is Elder Roger Green Jr. Okay. This brother, man, and you know, he's a solid brother, man. And from the very first time I met him, just up until the other day when we you know, talked, he's always been an encourager, and he's done things for me when he didn't have to, in terms of just put me on information or you know, being an example, and so, you know, I love him for that, you know what I'm saying? And I try to, that's who I am. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to mimic. So I'm all for sharing the love, encouraging, uplifting, and just, you know, because that's what we got to do, man. That's what we got to do.
Yeah, like there's so much to go around.
Give us the three things again. You said there are three things to life.
Yeah, love God, love people, the end.
There you go. Love God, love people, the end. I love it. That's a t-shirt right there. That's a t-shirt right there. Let's give it up for Mr. Marcus Crawford on this morning. Mr. Crawford, again, make sure you send me the link for the YouTube channel, all right? Because we definitely want to push and promote you, okay?
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. You have a good evening.
All right.
All right, folks, there you have it. Mr. Crawford himself, young man on the rise, young man making moves. Did you see the books? He had the books already right there. This brother is not playing. If you ain't giving him the information, he's going to get it. And that's what life is all about. Ain't nobody gonna give us everything. At some point, at some time, we've got to get up and go grind and get it. You know what I'm saying? I love what you said, Marcus, because he was saying how, you know, he's 22 years old, so he's already young. He's young, and that's already, in some people's opinion or eyes, a potential strike against him. But when they begin conversating, he opens up his mouth and he's knowledgeable of this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, a game changer. Yeah. So if you don't put nothing in, you can't get nothing out. This brother's putting something in. And so let us take a page out of Mr. Crawford's book on today, and let's make sure that we educate ourselves about whatever it is that we're doing. Whatever it is that we're doing, we ought to be knowledgeable enough of it so that when we engage in conversations, people will take note. It's your boy Retro Philosophy on today. Look at here. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about vacationing. We have Foxy, who is going to be with us also, or I should say Patrice Johnson, also known as Foxy. She'll be with us on tomorrow morning talking about vacationing and things surrounding that. So make sure you stay tuned, or at least tune in, I should say, for that tomorrow morning. I think that too will be a blessing for you. But yeah, if you've got some land that you're wanting to purchase, or a house you're wanting to purchase, or maybe some land or a house you want to sell, make sure you holler at my boy Marcus, and he can assist or help you out or point you in the right direction. Who knows what he might be able to do for you? Make the call and figure it out. Make the call and find out what he can do for you. All right, I'm going to get out of here. We hope you have a great day. We want to thank everyone for pressing play. And yeah, it's your boy Retro. I'm out of here. We'll see you on tomorrow. Let me say this too. We've got a little twist coming up for you. Okay, we got a little twist coming for you starting next week. I'll talk a little bit more about it on tomorrow, and then maybe elaborate it on Friday. But I want you to stay tuned for the twist that's coming your way. All right, folks, we out of here. God bless you, and heaven smile on.